And we're starting to see some of the arrivals of the royal family in our first glimpse of the Duke of Sussex, Prince Harry as well. We saw cousins Beatrice and Eugenie. They are entering into Westminster Abbey. I want to go to Keir Simmons as we watch some of these arrivals. The more royal you are, the later you get to come. Some of the attendees arrived there hours and hours ago, but now we're starting to see members of the family file in, Keir.
That's right, Savannah. It's a little like a wedding, isn't it? Except, of course, this is the marriage of the king to his country, and so you're seeing the family members arrive now with the Abbey full, and of course that moment that we have been waiting for, to see Prince Harry walk in, as you mentioned, walking under the canopy there outside the entrance to Westminster Abbey, because we have classic British weather here. Other members of the royal family offered umbrellas to walk in to stay dry as they head in for this ceremony. It wasn't possible to see the Duke of Sussex's face as he strolled, looking fairly relaxed, into the Abbey. I have to say, though, Savannah, just looking at the pictures of the King himself, we've mentioned over the past few days how relaxed and even laughing and smiling he has seemed. The burden of it does appear to be weighing on him a little bit as he heads towards this history-making moment. I mean, the most important moment, the most important day of his life. I wouldn't say he's necessarily looking anxious, but pensive, perhaps, and that's understandable.
And Kira, just what I mentioned, we're starting to see the King's brothers and sisters. We have Princess Anne just a moment ago, and now we see the Wessexes, his brother, as they enter into Westminster Abbey. And it was striking just a moment ago to see Prince Harry walking in and walking alone. Wilfred, we know that his wife Meghan is back in California. Today is the 4th birthday of the King's grandson, Archie. By the way, the King was 4 years old when his mother was coronated, so there's a certain thread there. But it was striking to see him walk that hall alone. He broke into a smile, seemed to acknowledge people he recognized.
Well, there's certain comparison on the 4-year-old point, but with an extra generation in between, don't let's forget. No, I thought that the good thing is he arrived alongside his cousins. There wasn't a total degree of separation, and of course we didn't expect him to have the same scale as his brother will have as the next in line to the throne. But that was really sad, and it's just a reminder of the tragedy that we've gone through in the last couple of years of this unnecessary separation, which of course doesn't look like it's going to change anytime soon. But but walking between his two cousins, Beatrice and Eugenie, who are both with their husbands, it's just very sad that we got to this point.
Yeah, that was just a moment ago, and of course now we've had the Princess Royal and the King's brother Edward enter as well, and I believe we may see. I was trying to make out if we had seen Andrew there.
That was Andrew.
Yeah, I thought so. Okay.
And of course, just also on the subject of Harry, we know he would have wanted to have worn his military uniform had he been allowed to, in exactly the same way as he wanted to at his grandmother's funeral. But as a non-working royal, he's not a working royal anymore. He's not allowed to, which is ironic given that only he and Andrew actually did active service in the military.
I paused because I thought I recognized Andrew, but he did seem to be in some sort of vestment. He wasn't in a morning suit as Harry was, and is that something that was unexpected?
It's some kind of robe or gown, but I don't think it was his military uniform.
Not the military uniform, because he is no longer a working royal either, because of stemming from the scandal regarding Jeffrey Epstein and some of the allegations and a lawsuit about that.
Yes, and he certainly won't be involved in parts of the processions back, and he certainly won't be on the balcony later. There's much debate as to whether or not Harry would be, and I think it's a missed opportunity for everyone if he's not, but the expectation very firmly is that he won't be. And I think that works both ways. I think that he's come back saying he wants certain apologies, and if they hadn't been forthcoming, then he wouldn't want to be out there, and vice versa. So again, it's all very sad. Just on the King's point, for things like the balcony and for things like the procession back, is he's also working with the need now to work with the Times, and the Times are suggesting to him that public opinion wants a more slimmed-down monarchy, and of course Harry now is 5th in line to the throne.
But it's interesting, as Savannah was mentioning, the interview that Princess Anne recently gave to the Canadian broadcasters, and she was asked about this question about the slimmed-down monarchy, and she did say, well, of course, it is pretty slim now. And what she meant by that was both by the fact that Harry and Andrew have been forced out in many ways, or have stepped back, but also, of course, the family has lost the Queen and Prince Philip. So there are already considerably fewer members, working members of the royal family.
And she already works to the max, no doubt about it, Anne.
And Anne works to the max. We know that she always has, at the end of the year at Christmas time, they print the list of which members, how many public events the royal families go to, and it's like a sort of a table.
Badge of honor.
There's competition.
The Princess Royal's always at the top.
She's always at the top of the league table, and proud to be so.
Hey, thanks for watching. Don't miss the Today Show every weekday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 Pacific on our streaming channel, Today All Day. To watch, head to today.com/allday or click the link right here.